Get Rich Education is brought to you by Norada Real Estate, the real asset investor, and Mid-South homebuyers.
Welcome to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold, giving you information and ideas on the investment that has turned more ordinary people into millionaires and billionaires than anything else, and can provide you with more wealth and happiness than you ever thought possible. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, and educator, Keith Weinhold.
Hey, welcome to Get Rich Education. This is episode 117. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold, back to help you build your wealth. We're talking about turnkey real estate investing in Birmingham, Alabama today. And people have a lot of misconceptions about Alabama. And you know, everyone that has that misconception has never been there. Alabama is one of the most economically forward-looking states in the U.S., if they're not number one. So let's take a top-down approach here for you. We had geopolitical strategist Peter Zeihan here on the show twice last year, and he let us know what places are positioned to be prosperous in both the nation and the world. Well, within the United States, he tells us that, for example, for a whole host of reasons, that New York City has got a ton of things going for it, and that it is positioned to continue to be very prosperous for Brexit and a lot of other reasons in the foreseeable future. Well, New York, that's already basically the world and the national capital for finance and for fashion and for culture and for media. And, you know, New York's become such a desirable place to live that it's also the capital of population and population density. It's a fascinating place to visit. I love it there. Incredible infrastructure there. Bridges, airports, museums, everything. Well, I wouldn't invest in New York because I can't get monthly cash flow with a small down payment on a residential property. That's because, for one, New York is such a desirable place to live that property prices have run up so much, and I don't know that that scenario will change in my entire lifetime. Peter Zeihan mentioned that some of the river cities like St. Louis and Memphis, they have good infrastructure, but they don't have it all figured out. Well, that means that St. Louis and Memphis property prices, they stay low enough in that sweet spot that they can provide an opportunity for you as an investor. And I don't know about you, but I want to invest in a place with opportunity, not so much a place like New York that's got a lot of things already figured out politically and structurally, because the opportunity is then gone. So that's why I like places like Memphis and Atlanta and Dallas. Well, there's one market in the United States where geopolitically and economically, Peter Zeihan identifies as a place that's really beginning to figure things out, and that I've identified as a place that still provides cash flow to you with a small down payment, and that is Birmingham, Alabama. Let's listen to a snippet of Peter here with me on a prior show. And, you know, the thing that you have to appreciate about Peter is that he's not a real estate guy per se, and he's just sort of immune from any biases that might exist if he were in real estate. Real estate is location, 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 so you want to talk about place.
The states that have the best population growth in the country are in the greater Midwest and down through the Great Plains into Texas. That's the youngest parts of the country. So anything in that zone, where it's Chicago or Houston or anything in between, looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Second, you want to look at the places that have a policy right, places that realize that there's change going on in the international system and are very aggressive at going out and mating their local geography, their local systems with whatever it is that the foreigner wants. The Midwest is a little bit further behind on this. Texas looks great on this and is very aggressive at recruiting companies. But there are a lot of places of the deep South, Alabama in particular, that has a good river system, has a good port in Mobile, and has been very aggressive at putting together all of its local leaders and representatives of everything from power companies to local tax officials, and going to Germany or Korea and making contact with big companies and then providing packages that makes them very attractive for them to relocate. So it's Alabama, not New York, not California. Alabama is the number one state in the country for per capita FDI. They've just done everything right.
So it's Alabama. Yeah, and when Peter referred to FDI, that's foreign direct investment. CNN Money named Birmingham one of the 10 hottest housing markets in the country. An industry publication named Birmingham the Silicon Valley of the Southeast with its burgeoning tech sector. Forbes named it 6th on its list of new industrial boom towns. So it's Alabama. And look, here's kind of a concept for you to wrap your mind around. I implore you to be disloyal to markets over your career as a real estate investor. Yeah, I actually encourage you to be disloyal. So identify the places that are poised to be prosperous before the prices run up like they did a long time ago in New York or coastal California. So yeah, be disloyal to markets over the long term. Lock in your price at the right place at about the right time. I'm disloyal to markets, and I'm loyal to helping investors and helping myself in these cash flowing markets. When you have a thriving market, that can mean at least 3 positives for you at the same time. Number 1, your property will appreciate. Number 2, your rental occupancy will be high. And number 3, your rental income increases over time. And there are just few better things to invest in, if there's anything better to invest in, than directly investing in turnkey real estate. And there sure are activities for you to be involved in other than as a passive real estate investor in turnkey single-family property. 2 weeks ago, we did that show about should you become a real estate agent? Well, there are a ton of advantages to doing that, but you really need to throw yourself into that. And that rarely works for a part-timer to sell properties. You don't want to be a flipper or a landlord. That robs you of your time. That robs you of your return on time invested. So for a flipper, unless you have a lot of experience and you know specifically what you're doing and you have a trusted team of contractors, you're often going to be disappointed. On your flip, the rehab can take way longer than you think. That increases your hold time, your carrying costs, and your stress level as you're dealing with all the uncertainty. So instead, with turnkey real estate, well, you're buying the property that's already been rehabbed. It's done. And then after rehabbing, you have one third-party inspector go in and check the contractor's work and make sure it's complete before you close. And then when you close, you typically have a renter in there from day one. So your turnkey provider, they have to be the flipper. They have to be the landlord. They're the ones that had to manage the contractors. And as the investor, you buy a property that's already renovated, already tenanted, and already under their management, or you're free to choose another manager if you so wish. Okay, so we're talking about income property, single-family homes today with a great guest in Birmingham, Alabama, and it's her first appearance on a show like this. Today, I'd like to welcome in from Spartan Invest in Birmingham, Alabama. Welcome to Get Rich Education, Maureen McCann.
Hi there, Keith. It's so nice to be on your show and to talk with you today. Super excited to share.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. We've talked about doing this for a while, and we've had appearances by Peter Zeihan, and he just keeps talking about the advantages of investing in Alabama and how it's such an up-and-coming place and how it's number 1 for foreign direct investment. So it's really the right time to have you on. So just tell us a little bit about the Birmingham market overview, because you were obviously attracted there for a reason. So just speak to business sectors, job growth, population growth, things like that.
Absolutely. I would love to. And I love that Peter's on. I just happened to be riding his coattails. He pointed out that Birmingham was a good market, and I just happened to be there. So happy to share a little bit about the business sector, job growth, and population growth. So this little unsung hero of a city is doing really, really big things. So the business sector, you've got banking and insurance, transportation and distribution, and very, very big healthcare. Birmingham has the auto industry as well. So very diverse industries within the market, and the job growth has been exceptional. Birmingham really just continues to deliver when it comes to important metrics like job growth and population growth. And while the most recent data for 2016 is not tabulated yet, Birmingham has consistently boasted an unemployment rate below 6%, and it's added over 11,000 jobs in the past year. It's just been growing, and the population is growing as well. You've got, the number may not be impressive, it's something 0.4%, but the millennials really have been flocking to a city that is low cost of living with just a budding downtown scene. So it's growing.
So Birmingham as a metro, it sort of has this great combination of low home prices, high rents, high and increasing rental demand. And, a lot of times we want to find those really submarkets in neighborhoods that are centered around job creators. So can you tell us a bit about picking the right area within the Birmingham metro that have those characteristics?
So there are many counties throughout Birmingham, and we specialize in the Jefferson County. So when you look at population growth and job growth, and you look at those various counties, the largest county is Jefferson County with over 660,000 residents and growing at over 2,500 people a year. So there's an attraction to this particular county because it has easy access to freeways, which gets renters to jobs quicker. And so the county itself is one where a lot of renters are drawn to because it is 20 minutes outside of the city. You can live in a single family house, which most families prefer versus living in an apartment. And it gives them freeway access to get to their jobs quickly, which is really, really important to a renter. They really kind of choose a property based off of, number one, proximity to work, and two, affordability.
How about the school district? How sensitive are you to that before you think about putting your homes in a portfolio here for a turnkey property that's in Jefferson County?
It's very important to us. There are certain school districts where we will not purchase. We're operating in really strong B quality neighborhoods. And, you've got some school districts in the Birmingham city and the Bessemer school districts where it's, they're just not areas that we want to invest. When you're investing in those, solid B neighborhoods, the school districts, they're not ranked the highest, but, they're in if you're looking at a scale of 1 to 10, they're in the 4 to 6 range. If you look at greatschools.org and rankings, that's where we tend to play.
And if you play in the area of 8s or 10s, those might correlate with purchase prices that are so high that they just no longer make sense for investors.
That's correct. That's absolutely right.
So let's talk a little bit about your price sweet spot then and some numbers and just what a rent to value ratio looks like on a typical property there in Birmingham, Maureen.
We're priced very low compared to some other sort of sexier markets, if you will. The sweet spot really for us, median price is about 104,000, single family. We buy what's normal for the neighborhood. So if houses are all brick, we're buying an all brick house. If it's, has a carport or a 2-car carport or a garage, we're buying what's normal for the neighborhood. So we never ever place any investor at a disadvantage with placing them in a property that is less than what the neighborhood offers. I think some of the numbers you were looking for is, the 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot house, around 104,000 with a return on equity, on levered money between 15 and 22% annualized net return.
Okay. And that typical $104,000 purchase price, what kind of rent income would that have monthly?
So you're looking at $1,050.
Okay. So pretty close to that 1% rent to value ratio there then. And what can an investor expect for property taxes there in Birmingham? So we're just talking again about your typical $104,000 purchase price property. What might be a typical property tax obligation?
This is what makes Birmingham such a great market to invest in because there are such low taxes here, low property taxes. And Alabama really does have some of the lowest property taxes in the nation. The effective property tax rate is really, at this point, is coming in at a measly 0.786%. It's very, very low. So the average property owner in Alabama pays just about $528 per year in taxes. This is 74% lower than the national average. So on a house that was $104,000, you're looking at less than $600.
Okay, because when an investor looks big picture, they start to look at rent to value ratio, and then what are some potential drags that the rent to value ratio doesn't consider? And oftentimes it's mortgage interest rate, and the other thing's property tax. So that's pretty good news there. What's a typical year of construction for the sort of homes that you have in your portfolio for investors?
There is a range. So we're mostly 1930s to 1980s, majority of them in the 1960s, very well constructed, built with solid materials. What's really nice about some of these older homes, because I know investors could get afraid, when they see a home built in, say, 1930s or 1940s. But these are very well-constructed properties with solid materials. Just, for example, even the cabinets are made of solid wood, unlike some of the newer cabinets that would be installed in brand new properties today that sort of have that veneer. These older homes come with solid wood cabinets that are very durable, last a long time. We recondition them, stain them, or paint them and put new hardware on them. If you take care of a house, it will last a very, very long time, which is essentially what we are in the business of doing. Is you protect the home, you protect the passive income stream that's coming for years to come.
Okay, so with the definition of turnkey real estate investing being that a company like yours goes in, identifies a distressed property, purchases it, renovates it, then goes ahead and rents it to a tenant, and then finally you keep that property under management. As we kind of look at that life cycle within a turnkey provider's portfolio, just tell us a little bit more about the beginning of that life cycle with the extent of the renovations that you do on a property for the investor.
Every turnkey company has a philosophy on renovation. I think that ours tops the list because, in essence, we've got investors that are they're saying, hey, turnkey provider, here's my capital. How are you going to protect it? How are you going to get an annualized net return on it consistently year over year? And how can I trust you? And so, the way that you lose money in real estate is through extended vacancy or through unexpected large maintenance bills. And our philosophy with our renovation is we're going to put the very durable, long-lasting materials in property up front. And so what that means is, what does that look like? New metal roofs that come with a lifetime warranty, new HVAC systems that come with a 15-year manufacturer's warranty, water heaters that come with a 10-year manufacturer's warranty, and then we don't do any carpet. It's all luxury vinyl tile flooring throughout the living space and the bedrooms that come with a 15-year manufacturer's warranty. So when you look at an upgraded plumbing and electrical where we need to within the property, and so when you look at long-term durability of the property, we're really deferring costs for as long as possible for our investors because the majority of the major components of the house are, this is a made-up word, warrantable, for at least minimally for a decade. And then the thing that we do differently, unlike any other turnkey provider, is we actually install granite in our kitchen countertops. And when we've done this, we've actually seen that the renters are willing to pay $25 to $50 more above the average market rent because it's not something that they typically see if they're moving out of an apartment, so to speak, or if they've already lived in another single-family home and they walk into a Spartan home. What they find is Baskin beige on the wall, luxury vinyl tile throughout the flooring, ceramic tile in the kitchen and bath with ceramic surrounds, and then the granite in the kitchen with all brushed nickel features throughout the entire house. It's one of those things when they walk in, they're willing to spend a little more, which happens to help us on the offering our investors a higher return on their equity.
Yeah, so for an investor, when they look at purchasing a property, they want to purchase a property that has the right type of improvements. They don't want a property that's over-improved because they're going to be paying so much more for it in purchase price and the rents may not keep up with that proportionally, and they don't want one that's under-improved or it might not have enough tenant appeal. So, okay, the granite countertops do work there. How long do you typically retain a tenant? And we're talking about single-family homes here, just to reiterate. How long on average is a tenant retained there?
Our average length of stay is 37 months. So we have them sign a 2-year lease, and they typically stay 37 months. That number continues to grow. So it's nice when you know that the quality of the renovation that you're doing on the unit, it's not over, because you can always over rehab a property. And just like you said, you over rehab a property, you're not getting those great returns. On a rental property, you rehab it enough where you can defer costs, major costs for the investor for a long time, but also make it very, very appealing to the tenant who wants to stay with their family a long time. Just as with us, they're staying 37 months on average.
Yeah, that is quite a lengthy average right there. When you have those nicer finishes, that probably does help with retention. So that interfaces with management. Now you've got a tenant in the property, and this discipline, interestingly, is called property management when you're managing a tenant, but it really ought to be called tenant management because sometimes that's where the real sort of friction can come in. So just tell us a little bit more about the communications between the investor and what I sometimes reluctantly call the property manager, which is just as much a tenant manager. Just tell us more about the relations between the investor and the manager.
We believe that investors need to be communicated proactively. As many of us are out-of-state landlords, we're not by our rental units. We're not driving by them. We're not checking in on them. And essentially, when you've got an investor that's saying, here, Maureen, here's my capital. How are you going to protect it and make it grow for me? They want to know certain things. They want to be reassured. Hey, is anyone overseeing my property, and how do I know? If I call you, are you going to answer the phone, or am I going to get, a voicemail? And so there's two very important things that we do that differentiate us. And that is, number one, so Stephanie Devine is our Director of Customer Relations. She calls all of our investors once a month with a performance update on their portfolio of rental properties. Even if it's just one, it's view of that property. We're on point. We're hitting the returns that you're looking for. We had an issue here. We had to fix it. It'll be deducted from the rent. You'll see it in which is the second thing we do, is called it's the online portal. It's propertyware that we use that is 24/7, username, password protected. Investor can get on 3 a.m. in the morning if they want to see when the rent checks showed up, if there was any issues with the property. Anytime that there is a call that's dispatched and there's an invoice generated, that is then scanned into propertyware. It's very transparent reporting. There's no hidden, you're going to get a bill for $400 and not know what it's for. So proactive communication, as well as the online 24/7 portal that they have access to see addresses of their properties, the lease agreements, any invoices that took place. And then, of course, most importantly, what everybody loves is when the money shows up. So they get to see when the money was automatically deposited into their accounts.
That kind of matters to investors, yes. Okay, so the portal seems pretty typical among turnkey providers these days, but the monthly call isn't. I'm sure you could opt out of that monthly call if you wanted to. Some people don't want it, and some people really appreciate that proactive approach. Not every company does that, that's for sure. And with the tenant, is the property tenanted as soon as the investor closes?
Percentage-wise, 96% of the time that is the case, yes. We have a very, very stringent background check, and out of 4 applications, we're turning down 2. So when you look at a 50% rejection rate, we're okay with that, because our goal is to really put a qualified tenant that's going to be long-term and paying in that unit, because my business partner and I, we are obligated to produce and deliver that return that the investor purchased, basically. I mean, up front, when they see the pro forma of the property and they see an 18% rate of return, I mean, we're going to do everything that we have to do on the back end to make sure that we get that return, because that's what the investor entrusted us with. So we've got to deliver that.
Yeah, and from an investor perspective, that sure is important in a few ways, to have that property tenanted as often as you can before you close. Because when you have it tenanted, not only are you getting cash flow from day one, secondarily, you know what the rent is going to be. You know that they already got that rent, and typically with a 2-year lease here. You're listening to Get Rich Education. Our guest is Maureen McCann. More when we come back. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold.
Are you on track to achieve your financial goals? Income-producing real estate is the most historically proven way to accumulate wealth and has created more financial freedom than any other means. Norada Real Estate provides everything you need to invest in the best turnkey cash flow rental properties. Our simple, proven system will help you create real wealth and passive monthly income. Get your free strategy session with our knowledgeable investment counselors at noradarealestate.com. That's NORADA realestate.com.
As a lot of investors know, multifamily real estate has been one of the best asset classes to be invested in most of the last decade. While the great deals have been harder to find lately, there are still opportunities in select markets where savvy investors can get lots of appreciation and strong cash flow if you have a great team. Dave Zook, founder and president of The Real Asset Investor, and his team have been very active in the multifamily space in Memphis, Tennessee. On the heels of the Great Recession of 2009, Dave and his team quietly started acquiring multifamily assets, and in the last few years, he has syndicated over 2,000 apartment units, creating strong cash flow streams and big appreciation for lots of their investors. It's not too late to get involved. If you're an accredited investor and you would like to learn more about investing in great multifamily apartments with a world-class team, email Dave and his team at info@therealassetinvestor.com.
This is the Millionaire Minds T. Harbecker. You're listening to the powerful Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold. Don't quit your daydream.
Welcome back to Get Rich Education with our guest representing Birmingham, Alabama, Turnkey Property, Maureen McCann. So, Maureen, it's of importance to investors to have the management company be under the turnkey provider's roof and have them be one and the same so that when problems inevitably arise, we don't have one company pointing at the other. Do you have both the turnkey provider arm and your property management arm under the same roof there?
Absolutely. This is imperative for us. We believe that we don't want any finger pointing, right? So my business partners and I who own the company, we own it, we operate it. So I guess in some instances, you've got a seller that's selling you a turnkey property. They're just selling the property. They make their transactional money and they're out. There's really no accountability on the ongoing performance of that property if the seller is not also managing the property as well. And so we've married the two because we're doing this for the long-term success of our investors, because if they're successful, then we're successful. The property management piece is huge. Like, this is the piece that either makes or breaks an investment property. And there's probably listeners that you have on your show that, have horror stories about, I bought a property in this market, but it wasn't properly managed and now it became a nightmare. And so we don't want any of that. Property management is the hardest piece of this business. It's where the heavy lifting is really, really done. And if you don't have an exceptional property management company in place, it doesn't matter where you buy a property, in what great market, with what great return is being shown to you up front. It's the ongoing exceptional management of that property that will get the annualized net yield that our investors are looking for. So we keep that all in-house.
Okay, all under the same ownership then?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's important to not have two companies pointing fingers to each other. Oh, an example I might be able to think of where things could go wrong is, say the turnkey provider finished renovating a place and the luxury vinyl plank wasn't installed properly and it started to come up. Well, now the manager's upset that they have to manage the oversight and have to dispatch somebody out there, and the manager's kind of being burdened with something like that where they don't feel they should have to be because the turnkey provider under renovation, they should have gotten that right the first time. But now when they're both in the same house, they won't be pointing fingers at each other. And as investors, I think we really only want to be pointing fingers at ourselves, saying, me, I'm the one that matters. We only want to point a finger at ourselves. We don't want a company that we're dealing with to point a finger at another company that we're dealing with. So, a lot of this comes down to, placing the right tenant. And you mentioned the 24-month lease is what's become typical there. So tell us, first of all, do you have a rent escalator in there? And then tell us about placing the right tenant.
We do have a rent escalator. So after the 2 years, we do increase the rent by $25. So that makes our investors very, very happy. And the placing the tenant is critical. We have a stringent background check. Out of 4 applications, we are rejecting 2. We do have a 50% rejection rate. We're okay with that because this is our investors are counting on us to place the right tenant. And what does that right tenant look like? So we go back to, credit score has to be at least 580 or higher. The total household income for the month has to be 3 times the rent. So if the rent's $1,000, we need minimally $3,000 coming in for the total household. We do look at their outgoing expenses through their credit report so we can determine if there is enough money to live comfortably in this unit, because the goal is to keep them in the unit for as long as possible. No evictions, no convictions. We go back, we verify employment, we verify other payment with previous property managers. So we really do dig deeply into the backgrounds as such to protect the capital of our investors who are entrusting it with us.
Yeah, that's important because superficially you might go ahead and look at a tenant and, okay, they might have $3,000 of monthly income for a $1,000 rent. So on the surface, that can be covered properly. But when you go ahead and take a look at their credit report and see that they've got so many expenses in their life, well, maybe they don't have enough income to cover their rent. So you are taking that extra measure of due diligence as any prudent investor or manager should. Well, tell us about Alabama as a landlord-friendly state. And I think landlord-friendly is often measured in the number of days typically that it takes to evict a non-paying tenant if that would happen to occur.
So there's a reason that we don't do this in California. Alabama is definitely a landlord-friendly state. And the numbers are pretty impressive, especially with us. If we don't have payment by day 10, we do notify the sheriff's office. We do post a notice on the door. Again, if they're communicating with us, we're going to work with them. But if there's been silence for the first 10 days of the month, we're taking swift, quick action. And we can actually have a tenant out of our unit in 32 days.
Okay, that's pretty good. That's probably a little bit better than the national average. And definitely un-California-esque, where you have professional tenants that can go without paying rent for 9 months before they have to leave. So since we're talking about Alabama and things specific to it, what are some potential pitfalls about investing in Alabama? I think geographically, every metro or every state kind of has their pitfalls that aren't apparent to the out-of-state investor. And I'll give you an example. In the Dallas market, which is a really good investment market, a lot of times you have foundation issues where you have these clays that expand and contract and the yard needs to be watered and people need to stay on top of that. Or there might be foundation problems just to the geology there in Dallas-Fort Worth. Dallas also has hailstorms, something that's often covered with insurance, but it's just something to be aware of. So are there any particular geographic things about Alabama that just make it different that an investor should be aware of?
So it's weather. You look at where Alabama is located, you have hailstorms that come through very similar to the Dallas market. Insurance-wise, you look at what's the highest cost for the insurance there, and it's really from wind damage. So when you look at where Alabama is, there are tornadoes that do come through. And so between the hail and the wind, those are probably the two biggest concerns, but those are usually covered by insurance premiums that will cover that type of damage. So, and then I guess I would say kind of jokingly, the biggest, thing to look out for is if you had every single industry within the state of Alabama all fold at the same time. I think about when you're investing, you don't do a one industry town. I think we've seen the results of what's happened to say like a Detroit, but when you have a city that has diversity of industry, then those kind of built-in protective measures to help really protect your capital. Because I just can't see banking, finance, transportation, distribution, and healthcare all failing at the same time.
Right. That is pretty unlikely. And a lot of times, novice investors overlook that the vibrancy of the market is typically more important than the property. Well, okay. So we talked about some maybe gotchas that are maybe inherent within Alabama real estate investing. Just any gotchas in turnkey real estate investing overall? Any things that you can think of that an investor best avoid?
It's really more of picking the right team of people. So what I will say to you, I've been in this business long enough to know that, and I've taken many calls from even international investors where they're being sold something and it sounds really good. And the website looks really good, and it all seems legitimate. And what I would say is that the best advice that I can give any real estate investor is ask questions and get very specific answers. And what I mean by that is if you're interviewing a company and you say, hey, what's your vacancy rate? What's your maintenance ratio? How long does it take you to get a tenant out and a new tenant in? And if you're hearing things like, well, we're around, or it's about, or I think it is, that tells you that particular provider who's supposed to be overseeing your capital is not measuring the things that could lose your capital. And so you want to hear very, very specific answers. So if someone says to you, what's your maintenance ratio? The turnkey provider should say it's 2.6%. What's your occupancy rate? It's 96.3%. That's the rolling 12 months. They should be able to break these very specific metrics down and have them roll off their tongue, not filled with ums and ahs, I thinks, or I'll get back to you on that one. So that would be the gotchas is someone that's not very specific in their metrics. They really need to know their metrics. That tells you they really understand their business, which means they're really watching out for your capital.
Your company's really transparent. I'd say I see that a lot of times your company's featured on local television stations and some other media. So you're really good and outgoing and showing a lot of signs of being a transparent company and doing a lot of the right things and really seeing some business growth lately. So Maureen, as far as an actionable step for an investor, what are really the steps to take and what's the minimum investment to get started?
It's really simple, actually. So it depends on how they're going to purchase. If they want to use conventional financing, they've got to get pre-approved with a lender. Once they're pre-approved, shop for a property, pick out a property, wash, rinse, and repeat to build the portfolio. And what's interesting is that the power of leverage is beautiful with real estate because you can acquire a high dollar value real estate for really only 20% or 25% down. So if you're looking at the average price point in Birmingham at $104,000, you're looking really at $20,000, $25,000 to get started as a minimum investment.
Okay, that's down payment and closing costs there. Well, you helped put together a report for our listeners, and that report's available if the listener wants to find out more at getricheducation.com/Birmingham. Just tell us a little bit more about that report, Maureen.
The 5 top reasons to invest in the magic city of Birmingham. I'm a bullet point kind of gal. I don't really like long emails. And so if you looked at the 5, the real 5 bullet points of why Birmingham, Alabama, they can be found right there. So Birmingham has got it going on. It's a steal of a market with great prices. There's really a hidden gem. There's so many great things that are happening in the city of Birmingham that people just aren't really aware of. We are the host city for the 2021 World Games. Zagat listed us as one of the #1 culinary cities in the United States. We have a new ballpark that was built that opened up in 2014, a $60 million baseball park. Just so many great things happening in the city of Birmingham. And I would just say, a premium income generating property with a peace of mind experience is what we offer. And you'll find that in the report.
Yeah, it really is an up-and-coming place, and you really want to get in before the word really gets out. Well, Maureen, in closing here, is there anything else that I should have asked you about, but I did not?
You're a phenomenal host, and I would say thank you for all of this. And I guess I would sum it up and just say that really it's all about the right team. It's not so much about the market. Birmingham happens to be a really good market, but it's the team of people that you are entrusting, because this is a long-term marriage. It's a long-term business partnership. It's not transactional. We'll sell you the property, but it's also the ongoing management. And so we've got to make sure that the marriage works. And we're super excited about what we do here in Birmingham, and helping people create passive income for long-term wealth generation is just what we do. We're passionate about it.
Yeah, well, with real estate, we think about property. We often talk about how the market's more important than the property. Well, the people that you deal with are more important than the property as well. So you can connect with Maureen by reaching out at getricheducation.com/Birmingham and chat with her. Maureen McCann, thanks so much for coming on to Get Rich Education.
Thank you, Keith.
So, yeah, I just love putting together a show like this one here. It's about using your contacts and guests to find the right location, the right provider, and the right time in a business cycle. And, well, with any income property, remember, though, to do your due diligence prior to a purchase, okay? So for single-family income property, where you typically don't have to pay for utilities like you do with most apartment buildings, keep your VIMTM in mind. That's VIMTM. VIMTM stands for your recurring costs after your mortgage. Your V for vacancy, I for insurance, M for maintenance, T for taxes, and that other M for management. Vacancy, insurance, maintenance, taxes, and management. So from your monthly rent income, deduct your VIMTM and your mortgage, and that should be a positive number. There's your cash flow. Have that third-party property inspection before you close. At last check, there is available inventory in Birmingham. Their waiting list is short or just completely non-existent. To get your free report about Birmingham turnkey real estate investing and connect with Maureen, just visit getricheducation.com/Birmingham. I'll be back next week to help you build your wealth. Now go out there and don't quit your daydream.
You've been listening to Get Rich Education, telling you what the wealthy won't tell you about real estate and investing.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.
flow real estate investors nationwide and worldwide, this is Get Rich Education's Keith Weinhold. Forbes has rated Memphis, Tennessee as the #1 cash flowing market in the world. Our good friends at Mid-South Homebuyers have been Memphis's premier turnkey real estate provider for 14 years with a stellar reputation and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Owner Terry Kerr was born and raised in Memphis. Yeah, he knows the market and has renovated and sold over 1,000 houses in the Memphis area. Find out what their many repeat buyers already know. Their houses are completely renovated, even come with a 1-year builder's warranty and a lifelong rental guarantee. They're a perfect fit for the first-time out-of-state investor or the seasoned investor diversifying their portfolio. Mid-South Homebuyers' friendly staff makes investing easy. Learn more at midsouthhomebuyers.com or give them a call at 901-217-HOME. The preceding program was brought to you by your home for wealth building, GetRichEducation.com.